The Securities Exchange Commission, known as the SEC, preparing itself for another smackdown in front of the courts as they delay an Ethereum ETF. We see Flare and Google partnership and the price of the Flare token go up over 25%. And the last thing that we're going to be going over, are we going to see a possible partnership between Ripple and Hedera as Brad Garlinghouse and Lehman Baird sit down together at Davos? Make sure you guys tune in all the way to the end of this video to find out all the details. Hey guys, it's Ryan with Big Dog Investing. Thank you guys for tuning into my channel. If you guys could do a couple of things for me, if you guys want to like, comment, subscribe to my channel if you guys have not done so already. Click the bell notification down below so YouTube can send you guys notifications whenever I release videos. Watch my videos all the way to the end. If you guys could share my videos and share my channel with anyone. I'm trying to grow my channel as much as I can, and I definitely need your guys' help in doing so. On my channel, we talk about anything that impacts financial markets. Mainly, we talk about cryptocurrency, but we'll also talk about the political landscape, especially because we're heading up into an election year, and then also anything with the stock markets. Getting started, today's gonna be Saturday, January 20th. The total market cap for all cryptocurrency right now is $1.64 trillion. This is a 1.13% increase on the day today. Fear and Greed Index, we're at a 57. We're neutral for cryptocurrency. Bitcoin, $41,573, Ethereum, $2,458, and XRP right now at 54.75 cents. XRP is on the downtrend right now, down on the 7-day, 4.60%, but on the day today for the 24-hour, up 2.43%. So that's good news for XRP. Looking at the price of the Flare token, I wanted to point this out before we talk about what was going on with Google and Flare. But if we look at the 7-day, right now they're up roughly about 29.01% on the 7-day. Currently, they are trading around 2.237 cents, but they were trading right around 1.737 cents, and they peaked at 2.395 cents. So doing very well, and it's only, in my opinion, again, make sure you guys do your guys' own independent research before making any financial decisions. But this is mainly because of that Google announcement. So we're going to be talking about that. Looking at the biggest gainers and losers on the day today, Chili's is going to be up 15.9%. Ron, which is new to the top 100, up 12.5%. And then we see TAO right now up 6.6%. Biggest losers on the day today, Pulse down 13.4, Hex down 10.8, and eHex is going to be down 8.8. We see the rest of the cryptocurrency market doing very well, and we'll see like Pulse, Hex, and eHex, which were founded by Richard Hart. For some reason, those tokens do bad when the rest of the market's doing well, and then vice versa. When the rest of the markets are down, those tokens for some reason are doing very well. Again, no financial advice. Getting into our news though, Apple's iPhone dethroned Samsung to become the best-selling smartphone series in the world in 2023. Now, this isn't just Android, it's just Samsung itself. So Samsungs are Androids, but Apple is its own separate entity. So it was nice to see, and this is the first time that this has happened since 2010, which is according to Bloomberg. So it's really interesting, and there's a debate between iPhone users and Android users, which one's better. In my opinion, I like Apple. I think it's more user-friendly, but there are perks to Androids. Right here, we see the press secretary getting asked, why are you repeating this false claim that Republicans voted to reduce the number of Border Patrol agents? And she basically just says, we are going to deny those claims. We do really believe that this is what it is. And they're talking about a package that the Republicans wanted to get rid of and basically cut funding. And she said that those fund cuts will be basically denying those 2,000 Border Patrol agents their jobs. And the reporter kind of comes back at her and was like, well, what are you talking about? Because there was no appropriations to that bill. So because there's no appropriations, there's no money. So there's no way for the press secretary to come out to say that the White House is wanting Republicans or saying that Republicans want to get rid of Border Patrol agents because there was no money in the bill. So they can't come up with that. So she was kind of there like stumbling for the whole time. It was really funny to see. Again, everything's going to be down in the links below in the comments, so you guys can go ahead and look in the description. Disney CEO Bob Iger received a total compensation of $31.6 million into 2023, up from the $15 million in 2022. Now, Disney's been losing money year over year. Just in theaters alone, they lost $1.1 billion. They did make some money back, though, with their park. So I think that their total compensation loss, so they took a loss in 2023, about $400 million. But they're laying off a bunch of staff, and there's a report that they're trying to cut funding or cut their budget by $2 billion so they can try to be profitable for 2024. We'll see what his compensation is for the next year, but it's kind of crazy that your business is losing money, yet you keep on increasing your CEO's amount. Right here, we saw, for those of you guys that don't know, this is Jamie Dimon. He's the CEO over at JP Morgan. But he comes out and says that, with the political landscape and everything, a bunch of people denying or basically kind of just brushing off former President Trump and defending the MAGA movement blast the Biden administration for this, because they basically are just saying that anyone who likes Trump is pro MAGA, and you're basically discrediting these 75 million Americans. He says Trump was right about NATO, immigration, and the economy, and he says that Democrats need to grow up. So it's kind of crazy to see that a banking institute, somebody who right now is doing very well because they were really profitable last year, while the rest of the financial markets took a hit. JP Morgan itself ended up getting about $49.1 billion in profits. So it was really an interesting take. And he kind of blasts the Democratic Party for calling Republicans deplorables and stuff like that. So it was really interesting take. And that was at Davos. Now, we saw that Trump just won the Iowa caucus, gaining about 50.9% of the votes, and that's when there was 89% of the votes in. He officially ended up with 51% of the votes. Ron DeSantis, 21.3%, and Nikki Haley with 19.1%. We did see Vivek Ramaswamy. He ended up dropping out of the race, and we have the New Hampshire caucus coming up. So we'll see what happens with that. Moving on, though, there's a huge shout out to Chris and his team from Zach Rector. Can't wait to see the final production. So Xrp Unleashed is going to be coming out. It's going to be a documentary about the XRP token and Ripple itself. And this is really interesting, and I'm super excited to watch this. Coach JV's in here too, along with Zach Rector. And there's going to be several other people in the XRP community. So the division cloud of tech giant Google has joined the Flare blockchain as a validator of the infrastructure provider. So this one was really interesting. I was kind of glad to see this. And this is what took the price of the Flare token up. Now, obviously, there's going to be more airdrops for the Flare token, so it's not necessarily to say that the price of Flare is going to keep on going up. So make sure you guys, again, do your guys' own independent research on that. Breaking: Quant CEO outlines trends he sees for blockchain in 2024. And these are actually really big outlines. So CBDC adoption isn't slowing down. So a central bank digital currency is not slowing down, except we see a lot of people being discredited of CBDCs. I'm against CBDCs in my opinion, but we'll see what happens with that. Programmable payments were going to be coming out, an evolutionary regulatory landscaping, so an evolving regulatory landscape. So we're seeing a lot of this going on in the United States. We don't have a lot of regulations, but we're seeing regulations globally taking off. So we'll see what happens here in the US as the SEC keeps getting destroyed in court. So the need for interoperability, and that's what the quant token does. So obviously, he wants the need for interoperability because that's going to help the quant network. And then striking a balance between innovation and responsibility. So hopefully this means innovation in tech, but a responsibility as a technical industry to basically be transparent with what's going on in their business models. Moving on, though, we see a brief first reply in the Debtbox defendants have filed, and it's a doozy. And this is what's going on with Debtbox versus the SEC. This is what the SEC had to come into the courts and apologize for because they were in the wrong. The judge kind of called them out on it and wanted to put sanctions on the SEC, and the SEC's like, please don't do that. So this is what's crazy right here, that in their reply brief, the Debtbox comes out and says that the SEC knew it lied. Instead of correcting the lie, the SEC concealed and suppressed it for months, causing enormous damage to the defendants in this case, as well as incalculable damage to third-party business, token holders, and others around the world. In a remarkable admission, the SEC now reveals in its response to the court's suo sponte order to show clause that the SEC Salt Lake Regional Office staff knew that its lead trial counsel had made a material false and misleading statement in the court at the moment he made on July 28th, 2023, but failed to correct it for months. And in the very end, Ron Nelson's personal account and his two business accounts were frozen, keeping him from being able to pay suppliers. So I'm sure that he's the CEO or founder of Debtbox. So being able to pay suppliers, contractors, and help Igris Energy LLC in Oklahoma. All its workers, approximately 14, walked off. And because they were not paid, some of them decided to steal tools, equipment, and vehicles that belonged to the Igris Energy. The total loss of the theft exceeded $125,000. Ron Nielsen was trying to refinance his house because he was on a short-term loan. The loan he was trying to obtain had been canceled, and now he's looking for a possible foreclosure on his house that him and his family have lived in for more than 12 years. Ron Nelson has lost banking relationships that took him over 15 years to build. Credit cards have been canceled, not because of non-payment, but because of um, the receiver sent the TRO papers to his bank relationships and his credit card companies, and his family and friends will probably never talk to him again, or when he gets weird side eyes when he walks into a crowded room. So the emotional distress that him and his family are going to be feeling is causing him a lot of harm. So this is what the SEC has been doing in courts. They lied about the documents to try to get the judge to freeze these accounts. They were frozen from a previous time, but then now he's receiving all of this. The SEC now has to come out and admit that they were at fault in this, and that's the reason why that the judge agreed to freeze all of these accounts. It's just a whole mess. The XTC Foundation says we've been discussing a lot of decentralized real world assets lately, but what exactly are they and how will they fit into the trade finance? Here's a lot that's going on right here. My computer's about to die, so I can't really get into it. But again, everything's going to be down in the comments, but we're going to see a lot of real world assets being tokenized, whether this is on the XFIN network with the XDC token. This is on the XRPL with the XRP token, Stellar Lumens network, with the Stellar token, the XLM. We'll see a lot of this. So spot Bitcoin ETF trading volume surpasses 9.4 billion in the first 3 days. So Bitcoin ETFs are doing very well. We see JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon also in the same interview basically says his personal advice is not to get involved in Bitcoin. Yet JP Morgan is an authorized participant in BlackRock spot ETF. So they're profiting off of this ETF, yet saying don't get involved in Bitcoin. It's really interesting take for him. Now, former President Trump says that he will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency if elected in 2024. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy with CBDCs and taking control. I'm against this again. And I wanted to point this out because at the World Economic Forum, which is going on in Davos, former head of the IMF's division right here of this country, I'm not going to name it, CBDCs will be programmable in a way that will enable governments to dictate how, when, and where, on what, and then by whom they can be spent, including imposition and expiring dates. So basically, that if you finally have a CBDC, eventually governments can take control and decide when you can make payments, who you can make payments to, and then also when you have to make payments by, and if not, your money goes away, which is kind of crazy to think about. And this is one of the biggest news. The SEC delays decision of Fidelity Spot Ethereum ETF. We see a lot of filings with the SEC with Bitcoin spot ETFs. They officially had to approve it after several years of delays. They had their first one about 10 years ago before they finally approved it just recently. And now that Fidelity's trying to get into the spot Ethereum ETFs, we're going to see a lot more filings. And then in my opinion, we're going to see the SEC get destroyed again in the courts because they got destroyed in the courts with the spot ETF. Now, I haven't listened to this completely because Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul Grewal, went in front of the courts to talk about the Coinbase lawsuit in a deposition. It was about 5 hours. So I'm still listening to a lot of that. So I'm going to make a video on it, hopefully before this weekend ends, about exactly what they talked about. But so he comes out and says, today we made arguments in our motion to bounce the SEC Gov suit against the Coinbase. So they want to get rid of the lawsuit. So after hours and hours, this is a much remains clear that the SEC continues to claim broad authority over all investments while offering no limiting principle in its definition of an investment contract. So I'll leave that there because I want to make this own video on this in my next video, which will hopefully be before the end of the weekend. So Lehman Baird, who's the co-CEO over at Swirls Lab and then also the co-founder of Hedera, sits down with Brad Garlinghouse on at Davos for the World Economic Forum, and he talks about the blockchain for business, and then basically how that they can come together, how different industries or different technologies can come together, because Ripple uses blockchain and Hedera uses hashgraph technology. Hedera has the HBAR token, and Ripple uses the XRP token for their business model. And he talks about how wanting to sit down and coming together as an industry to work together, and we can help keep users safe, build trust, and reach our potential to help the world. And I totally agree with that. And then also, HBAR co-founder plus Solana president, Casper co-founder, and Ethereum co-founder all sit together. So we're seeing a lot of these partnerships, and we saw a partnership between Algorand and then also Hedera just last week. Mark L just joined Ripple to lead business development for CBDCs on the XRPL, and he worked at R3 for over 6 years, so he comes in with a lot of experience. SBI Holdings, a Ripple partner investor, will use the XRPL to issue an NFTs for the Expo of 2025. We saw this in 2024. Hopefully this one is going to be a little bit better, in my opinion. Hopefully they learned a little bit of what went wrong. So Brad Garlinghouse sat down with a lot of people in the Davos for this, which was really interesting. So Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse will be taking the stage alongside CFTC Commissioner Caroline DeFam at Bloomberg House on Tuesday at 4:20 p.m. CET in Davos. So we watched that interview. We'll talk about that again in the next video. But when he sat down, he did say, I do think that the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, is a political liability in the United States, and I think he's not acting in the interest of the civil industry. He's not acting in the interest of the long-term growth of the economy, and he doesn't understand it. So he's basically calling him out. And this right here is where he sits down and says, now that there's a clarity for Ripple and the XRP that it is not a security, that opens the US markets up a little bit. So basically the token in of itself is not a security. They still have to figure out what's going on with institutional sales because those were considered a security. We saw that the SEC filed something against Ripple just a little bit ago, wanting their reports and their documents for their business for 2022 to 2023. So we'll see what happens with this, but in my opinion, the SEC is at an overreach, and they're probably going to get denied in that. And then right here it says, thanks for sharing the clip. The fact that the courts are ahead of the SEC on the crypto to which the Brad Garlinghouse refers to itself as a product, and the SEC is engaging in so much litigation involving crypto. So he basically in this video, he talks about how the SEC itself isn't playing fair rules. They actually have stuff, job descriptions. They're hiring new employees, and in their job descriptions, they want to be the prosecutors of what's going on in crypto. And the courts are actually the ones that are basically saying that the SEC is not playing fair rules. So it's a really interesting take. And then the last thing that I want to be going over before my computer dies is right here. He sits down with CNBC and he gets asked about an XRP ETF and if he thinks it's going to happen. And he doesn't actually admit that it's going to happen. So kind of what we saw with BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, not really wanting to comment on it. He does say, though, that he does think that that there's going to be tokens that will be ETFs, other tokens besides Bitcoin, but won't approve or agree with saying that the XRP token itself will have its own ETF. Thank you guys for tuning into my video. And again, we will be seeing one with a Coinbase lawsuit. The update here in the next video, again, hopefully before the end of the weekend. And if you guys can invest with the big dogs, stay on the porch. Thank you guys and have a good one.